on this point, then I'll be shocked. But I think the Pepe situation is more fascinating because the amount of money that was spent on him. This is going to be an interesting reference point for Arsenal's transfers going forwards. And I remember, when they were trying to get Houssam Aouar in the summer, and the president of Lyon, Jean-Michel Aulas, saying, well, if they're going to spend 72 million on Pepe, they can spend more money on Aoular and on Aouar than 45 million. And that headbutt is unforgivable. It is unforgivable. And you saw how angry Arteta was. And in my opinion, I haven't seen enough from Pepe as an all-round performer. He has to have some flashy moments, and he has scored some nice goals. I always remember one of his first games he played for Arsenal against Liverpool, where he almost scored an incredible goal. He sort of burst through. I can't remember if it was a save or he hit the post, but he almost got off to an incredible start, and it could have laid the foundations for him to build upon that. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about.
Yeah, where he skinned Robertson on the counter.
Yeah, and then it's just since then, he's never quite taken off on a consistent period. And it's getting to the point now where Arteta's going to need to pick his best 11. He hasn't got any room for passengers. Obviously, Pepe came out recently saying he's a happier man when he's playing football. He deserves time to play. And then he goes and does what he did on the field there. And he's just given Arteta a reason to bench him for 3 games or so, or something like that, and just say, you're not getting back in this team until something changes. But I mean, as an Arsenal fan, how frustrating was that to see your record signing, who hasn't really performed like a record signing, let's face it, go ahead and do something like that?
I just turned the game off. I was just like, I didn't expect us to win. In fact, I expected us to lose, but I was like, I'm not going to enjoy watching the rest of this game. Like, we're obviously going to have to sit really deep and try and counter. And to be honest, later on, like I was told, and then I watched some highlights, that Bukayo Saka was very good when he came on, so that's good. That's fine. I mean, for him to do that, I think the only excuse would be if something seriously extreme was said, which nobody is saying. Like if somebody says something like racist to you, then sure. I obviously, like, is it better for the club that you walk off the pitch? Yeah, but I'm not going to tell people how to respond to that. But if someone's just being a dick to you and you go and headbutt them, you know what's going to happen. Like, it's just so stupid. And actually, Arsenal weren't great in this game, but I actually felt like Pepe had some good moments in the first half, and it was quite nicely set up for him, because if there's one thing he's good at, it's like taking his man on one-on-one. And against Leeds, you're going to get to do that because Leeds man mark across the whole field. So I was like, this is a game quite nicely set up for you. There were a couple of times in the first half he managed to wriggle away from his marker, like both in his own half and in the attacking third, and either, like help build a counter-attack or he got a shot off. And so it was just kind of disappointing. And the thing is, I don't think he's been great. I don't think that to be honest, I don't really rate him at all. But I think he's fine. Like, I think there are other players in the league who people think are really good wingers who are not really better than Pepe. And it's clear he's a real confidence player. Like, when he's confident, he can do like some pretty remarkable stuff. And he's certainly not a bad player, but he's an idiot for this at least. And he just doesn't fit clearly with what Arteta wants. So I don't know, he's been stuck in this role that doesn't suit him, so I think I give him some leeway there, and the fact that Aubameyang's looked bad as well, like basically all of Arsenal's attackers have looked bad. I think that has to come down to Arteta rather than individual attackers. But now Arsenal are going to have another few weeks where they'll play Saka, and that's okay, but they're also going to have to play either Nelson or Willian, and it's just like really demoralising. Or they'll go back to playing Aubameyang on the wing. Really, my feeling's been the same like over the last few weeks, which is I actually am just really looking forward to Martinelli coming back, because Martinelli, I think, is he's not really an on the ball player. Like, he's a guy who makes run. He's really a striker playing on the wing, but he's a good dribbler. He's unbelievably fast. His intensity is genuinely incredible, and I think that's true of the youth players generally. Like Nelson, Willock, Saka, Martinelli. Like, these guys work so much harder than Aubameyang or Pepe or whoever it might be. And so now I'm just kind of like, this season is not going anywhere. You might as well give your youngsters as many minutes as possible. Like, you might as well play Saliba every week. Like, he can't be that much worse. Like, I don't know. I just think, like, Arsenal should probably take advantage of the fact that they've got nothing to play for, really, by getting as many minutes as possible for their youngsters, because you can see the effect it's had on Saka. So, I don't know. I don't really have a coherent answer, but there's a part of me that's just like, his value's the lowest now it'll ever be, unless Arteta finds a way to use him as more of an inside forward than a winger, and gives him his confidence back. But there's a part of me that's like, Arteta's never going to like Pepe. He's never going to like him. Like, do we just cut our losses here? Yeah, I don't know. I just think, like, Pepe's never going to be that kind of guy for Arteta. Arteta wants him to track back, and he actually did track back quite a bit in this game. I don't know why people are saying he didn't. But he's never going to be that hard-working defensively. He's never going to want to stick on the sideline, which seems to be what Arteta wants him to do. You know, like, he plays really far out, and it's actually Bellerin who comes inside rather than the other way round. And where Pepe had success at Lille was as basically an inside forward, almost as a second striker at times. I just think that those things are never really going to chime under Arteta. And so, yeah, if Arteta leaves, then maybe you can get another manager in who would get more out of Pepe. But
you're already floating the possibility of Arteta leaving. You already think that's a kind of theoretical scenario that the Arsenal board would entertain.
I don't know. I don't think the Arsenal board would do it, but it depends where we are. Like, I mean, if, say, by next summer there are no signs of progress at all, I would be thinking seriously about doing it. Like, I don't want to do it now because it's still been under a year, and, like, you know, there's been 2 pretty bad transfer windows since he took over. But yeah, like, obviously there are holes in the squad, and that's partially his fault, but it's not entirely his fault. But it depends whether we've improved in other ways. Like, I think the defense has improved, and some of the passing out from the back. But when he arrived, he was like, I want us to play on the front foot. I want us to press all the time. Arsenal are one of the least aggressive pressing sides in the league. Like, genuinely, I think we're second bottom. Like, we press so little. And when we do press, it's really defensive. It's to, like, try and get them to play the ball back to their keeper rather than to try and win the ball high and create chances, which is how a team like Southampton gets around the fact that they don't have an attacking midfielder. They use a high press to generate good chances. We don't do that at all. Like, we don't press.
Sure.
Like, he says he wants people to press, but he doesn't really. He wants people to track back, like, because people aren't pressing. So unless we start to see some positives in those senses, like, I'm not saying we have to be a good side. We don't have to be a top 4 side. But if by the end of the season, he's been in charge for 18 months, and there aren't clear signs of progress and clear signs that we're adapting to his style, then you would say, like, what are we expecting to happen if we keep you on? Like, are you telling us that we make, like, 2 signings next summer and everything's suddenly amazing? Maybe that's true. Maybe it's like Spurs. Spurs were a kind of mid-table side last year. They made a couple of good signings. They slightly changed their system around, and, like, now everything looks better. But maybe that's not the case. And then I think that you have to at least think about changing the manager if people like Pochettino are out there available, if guys like Hasenhüttl are at Southampton, if Thomas Tuchel has been sacked by PSG. Yeah. But I don't want him to be fired. I want him to have the time. It's just that obviously it depends what he shows. Like, he needs to show something this season. And if he just says, you know, like this game, he really changed the system up. He was like, right, we're going to play 4-3-3. And you look at it and you're like, God, Xhaka shouldn't be playing. Like, I don't think Willock should be playing. I wouldn't want Willian playing. So if say by the end of this, if say they go out in January and they buy like an attacking midfielder, and then next summer they're like in for a winger, and suddenly you're like, okay, you've got Saka on one wing, you've got Martinelli or another winger on the other, Aubameyang through the middle, and then you've got a midfield too of like Ceballos and Partey behind like an attacking midfielder, and everything's working, then I'll start to see it. But if we don't do that and we continue doing this thing of let's sign some old players and let's not press and let's not take shots and all this kind of stuff, then I just think where is the hope for the future?
Can I just ask you, because you touched upon their summer transfer window